if you're listening to a podcast...
The truth never makes me uncomfortable. It only exhilarates me.
I mean...
no matter where it's, on whatever side it is.
Yeah?
And
you want to talk about a little bit of truth in Gaza then? You want to get exhilarated right now? I can exhilarate you.
I know you're going to say genocide, and I'm going to say, well, you don't know what the word means. And it's like, if you don't even know what the words mean... I'm
Armenian. I know what the word means.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, it's when you try to wipe out an entire population of people, which they didn't come close to doing.
I mean...
They prosecuted a war in which they were attacked, which everybody gets to do.
Which, by the way, let me just say, if they were literally going after Hamas, that is legitimate. That's totally legitimate. But that's not what's happening.
Hamas hides in tunnels underneath hospitals. You can't go in...
Hold on.
Hamas is the bad guy. If you don't get that, Hamas, you don't get much.
What Hamas did on October 7th was disgusting. Killing... I mean, I don't at all hold back on that. In fact,
that's the easiest thing in the world to say.
I mean,
nobody disagrees.
I agree. Nobody
disagrees.
There are people who disagree, actually.
Raping babe. Yes, there are.
There are people who think I'm wrong because Hamas, they're freedom fighters. What kind of freedom are we talking about here?
That people see Hamas, the people who hate oppression so much, are on the side of the people. And that's not just Hamas. If you social justice warriors, if you have any other issue besides gender apartheid in the world that is above that, you're just a joke. That, if you hate oppression, there is one issue which should be above all because it affects more people, hundreds of millions of women who have basically no freedom in the Muslim world.
Right. So we should slaughter them instead, which is what's been happening.
Well, you should prosecute a war to the end. That does involve slaughter of every war.
I think. Listen, civilians get killed in wars. I think everyone knows that. Everyone acknowledges that.
Especially when you hide behind them.
But when 83%, according to the IDF's own data. And this is reported, by the way, I consume Israeli media on this. I don't consume American media on this. And Israeli media is super honest, way more honest than our media is. So when the IDF's own data indicates that 83% of the people that they've killed are civilians.
Because they hide behind them.
But Bill, do you understand that by killing so many civilians, they are essentially multiplying extremism?
I do understand that. Do you understand that there's very often in the world two very bad choices, and you only...
I mean, I'm an American. I have to vote in presidential elections. Yes, I do know that.
Okay, you don't have the good choice. You have the bad choice and the even worse choice. Israel has been being attacked by Hamas. First of all, the entire Arab world rejected them for 75 years. They kept trying to make a deal. They kept saying, no, we want it all. That's what from the river to the sea means. It means we want it all. We don't want a compromise. They've never wanted a compromise. Israel gave Gaza back.
But did they?
It back.
But Bill,
in
let's say our country was occupied by Mexico, right? We have a bunch of people who are occupying our land, and then they decide,
you know what, we're going to leave. Hold on, let me finish. They weren't occupying
Let me finish. Let's say Mexico decides, you know what, we're going to leave, but we're going to control their electricity, what goes in, what comes out.
Because they were attacking
We're going to mow the lawn and just like randomly decide we're going to slaughter people because they allegedly threw rocks. They have literally nuclear...
Well, they didn't allegedly.
I mean, Israel has nuclear weapons, Bill. They have nuclear weapons.
And they don't... And that's,
they have the world's military superpower backing them.
Right. Well, they have nuclear weapons, which they don't use. If Hamas
No, they don't use it, but just pretend
if Hamas had a nuclear weapon, how many seconds would it take before they used it on Israel?
I have no idea.
3. 3's the answer. 3 seconds.
How do you know that, Bill? Come on.
Because it's in their charter.
If they used a nuclear weapon against Israel, I'm pretty sure the very land that Hamas cares about would be done for.
Okay, then they would be martyrs, and that would be a good thing, because that's their death cult view of the world. It's a good thing when you die. That's why they strap suicide vests sometimes on children. The fact that you can't see the moral difference between these two sides always amazes me among people.
I actually don't see the moral difference when you have like Bezalel Smotrich and Ben Gvir literally talking about exterminating the entire population of Gaza.
Okay, they're not talking about...
And these are not, they are. I mean, the statements are brazen, they're upfront, they're honest. This is what they actually want to do.
Well,
I mean, the West Bank is another example.
It's in Hamas.
The West Bank had nothing to do with what happened on October 7th, but they're annexing that land anyway. They're raining terror on innocent people, innocent Palestinians. They're driving them out of their homes. Like, listen, I am willing to admit, because it's the truth, that what Hamas did on October 7th was a fucking atrocity.
Oh, wow.
Killing innocent people.
Who couldn't admit that?
But you have a difficult time at least acknowledging the atrocities that have been committed against innocent civilians in Gaza.
Well, it depends on what you call an atrocity. All wars are going to have atrocities.
A double tap on a hospital? A double tap on a hospital? So when the first responders show up?
I don't know exactly what you're talking about. I vaguely remember the thing.
Right.
Yeah. First of all, that's an old terrorist trick. Mm-hmm. That's what they do all the time.
Okay, but are you at least going to acknowledge that the IDF doing that was wrong?
Yeah, I'm sure they have committed what we would call war crimes, as every army does in every war.
Right, including our own, right?
In every war, including the Civil War. I forget who it was who made the good point. Like, during the Civil War, a lot of people would say, especially in the South, that Sherman did not have to burn Atlanta quite as badly as he did. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I mean, we were pretty brutal. But would you also then just say, well, we don't know who the good guys were in that war? No, I think it was the North. I think that they committed the atrocity in Atlanta. Yet that's true. They burned when they shouldn't, and they were very rough on the South. They were still the good guys. They were fighting against slavery as Israel is fighting to survive. And also, you know, they are the front line in the Western world.
I totally disagree with you on this entirely. Well, I think much of the problems we have in the Middle East is due to the enabling of this Look, it's an expansionist policy. If Israel wasn't trying to continue expanding in the Middle East, so I don't think they would be dealing with the enmity, like the enemies that they're dealing with.
They've never been asked. They've never been trying to expand.
They're trying to annex the West Bank right now, and Lebanon, southern Lebanon, and Syria, which they've succeeded in.
These are all places that they were attacked from. When they became a country in 1947, they said, "Okay, we will accept half a loaf." They had as much right to that land as anybody. There was a continual presence there since 1000 BC, when King David had a kingdom.
I don't care about that at all.
Okay, but it's relevant. It's relevant to people. It's relevant to...
You can't wipe out innocent people because you used to live there like centuries ago.
You're calling them colonizers. They're not colonizers.
They're expanding, and they're annexing land. That's what colonizers do.
First of all, again, they were willing to take half a loaf. Then they were attacked in Excuse me.
It's way more complicated than that, but it's okay.
Well, I don't know if you know the history.
I do really well.
Really?
Actually, yeah.
Tell me the wars.
So, for instance,
when were they attacked? What wars?
Okay, so in 1967, when
that was the first time?
No, that wasn't the first time.
When was?
But when you say that they have offered land to the Palestinians, land that belonged to them in the first place,
it didn't belong solely to them.
The whole point of this whole two-state solution was, okay, we'll give you this territory if you promise not to militarize. Without a military, you don't have a country. You don't have a country without a military. You don't have a country without borders, right? Without a military, you can't defend your borders. So if I were engaging in these negotiations with the Israelis, I would say, listen, I respect the territory that you're offering. However, we need to militarize. We need to protect our borders. To me, that's a big thing.
But that's not what they ever used it for. Again, they gave Gaza back in 2005. They could have chosen...
They didn't give Gaza back in... They left Gaza, but didn't really leave Gaza when they have complete control over the territory.
Because they kept being attacked. Excuse me, just let me finish one sentence.
Go ahead.
They could have turned Gaza into a state that was much more like, I don't know, Dubai or something, if they wanted to. They didn't. Hamas took over right away. They never had elections after that.
You're right about that. You're right about the elections,
They're a terrorist mafia. Their own population is terrorized by them. They don't like them. All they did was import weapons from Iran, build tunnels, and use it to prosecute this war against Israel. They never used it. So, of course, Israel is going to be defensive. Their issue was they were not defensive enough, which is why October 7th happened.